Mafia The Old Country vai sair daqui a menos de um mês, no dia 8 de agosto, e a IGN conseguiu fazer aqui um Exclusive Hands-On Preview. Então eles conseguiram jogar um pouquinho do jogo, vamos falar aqui uma prévia do jogo, que tem chamado muita atenção, principalmente pelo seu preço de $50. Então tá uma experiência um pouquinho mais reduzida, mas parece que não tá deixando a desejar na qualidade do jogo. Então vamos dar uma conferida, clã?
Before I sat down to play about 3 hours of Mafia The Old Country, Hangar 13 president Nick Baines repeatedly mentioned his team's desire for players to finish this prequel story. And so with that goal in mind, the latest Mafia game turns back the clock both chronologically, it's set in the early 1900s in Sicily, and in game design as well.
Ah, é? Game design?
Mafia 3, though very good, went full open world, and the
entendi.
developers seem to feel similarly about it in hindsight as players did. It just didn't fit Mafia well. The first two Mafias were gorgeous, narrative-driven linear games set against the backdrop of a stunning and highly detailed world that, while explorable, really only existed as a beautiful backdrop for your main mission, rather than trying to keep you busy with menial tasks and side
Uma
quests.
experiência mais fechadinha,
In
mais
fact,
trabalhada, eu
Baines
curto.
seemed to suggest that the positive reception to 2020's remake of the first game, Mafia Definitive Edition, served as something of an inspiration to and North Star 4, this fourth entry in the mainline series. I'm pleased to report that after playing through chapters 3, 4, and 5 of The Old Country,
começou
the
pelo
development
3.
team has seemingly
Pelo 5.
succeeded in returning Mafia to its gameplay roots. This is, like Mafia 1 and 2, a story-first, not open-world action-adventure. And interestingly, your primary upgradable weapon isn't a gun, though they are certainly here, but rather your knife. Stealth is fully supported, and even better, it's only going to be $50 at launch, or as I like to call it, a reverse Randy Pitchford price tag.
Não, mas essa parada do preço tá maneiro mesmo, tá um chamativo aqui do jogo, porque, mano, visualmente ele tá impressionante e na gameplay também tá bem
When I
refinada
first
pelo
picked up
visto.
the controller, playing on a high-end PC, which is where the footage you're seeing here came from, it's the early 1900s and late teenager Enzo Favara has recently escaped the sulfur mines he spent his childhood laboring in and started to become his own free man while working in the vineyard of Don Teresi, a Sicilian mafioso who protects the people and property of the region from the thieving bandits that lurk in the hills, in exchange for monthly protection payments, of course.
A pleasure, as always.
I really like how The Old Country tries to depict Enzo's progression from a very innocent kid into a bound-by-blood, fully vetted member of the Teresi
Boladão.
outfit who's got the green light to do anything he thinks needs to be done for the good of the family. We see this play out in Chapter 3, where Enzo's first taste of life outside the vineyard with the Teresis comes when he's brought along on a series of collections by Luca, the Don's right-hand man, and Cesare, another made member of the family. Luca and Cesare are essentially the mafioso version of an angel and devil on your shoulders, where Luca preaches patience and using violence only as a last resort, while Cesare is more of a shoot first and ask questions later kind of guy.
We let him act tough in front of the boy.
And then we remind him of his obligations.
For example, on our first collection stop, we visited Marco, an olive farmer. Marco always pays on time, but on this occasion, he's late. Luca gives me an unloaded gun to be used only as an intimidation tactic to get Marco
Claro.
to pay up,
Ainda mais que você pagou, pô.
You give him a chance to be brave.
but Cesare told me, quote, an extra pair of hands helps jog their memory about the late payment. Side note, I think I saw more fruit in the 3 hours of playing Mafia The Old Country than I've seen in any game ever. We might need a new Game Awards category for this. Ultimately, no
Tá,
bullets
tem
were
bastante
fired
fruta
nor
mesmo.
punches thrown, and I got the Don's money from Marco's safe after finding the combination nearby. I appreciate that Hangar 13 put thought into Enzo's journey into the Teresi crime family here and didn't just instantly let you become a murdering psychopath. Things escalated slightly
dando
on
uma
our second
elaborada
stop,
de
though,
desenvolvimento,
after we
né?
rode our horses across the Sicilian countryside to the farm of Mr. Bangalino, whose workers, led by a man named Manuela, are on strike.
We can't have strikes around here, Manuele. You and your friends need to get back to work.
By the way, I can't emphasize how much I enjoyed staring at the countryside while riding to each destination on this mission. Mafia: The Old Country ditches the proprietary engine it's used in all 3 previous Mafia games and moves to Unreal Engine 5 for this
Unreal
installment.
5, porque
to be fair,
tá bem
the
bonito.
previous engine was no slouch. Mafia 2 in
Parece ser
particular
otimizado,
was
mas eu tava
a
jogando no PC de
strikingly
última geração,
good-looking
né?
game at the time it came out, and Unreal maintains the series' reputation for delivering lovely locations. The perfect blue skybox and pillowy clouds
visualmente
that
tá
sit atop
muito
the
bonito.
rolling green hills and
Por ser uma
farmlands
experiência
did a
menos
great
aberta,
job of establishing the
eu
Old
confio que vai
Country's
estar bem
Sicilian
otimizado.
setting. I can't wait to see more of this world in the rest of the campaign. Anyway,
Mas assim,
Manuela
mesmo sendo
pulled a
menos
knife,
aberto, ainda tem bastante
introducing
área,
me
né?
to what is, as I mentioned earlier, perhaps the weapon that Mafia: The Old Country puts the most importance on. You can unlock and earn new knives, and each has unique modifying properties,
Caraca.
giving you a reason beyond the cosmetic appearance of each blade to choose a specific one that suits your combat preferences. You've
Não
got a
sabia que tinha
lot
tanta
of
propriedade
moves
de
in a
faca
knife
assim.
fight. Thrusts, slashes, parries, and dodges. Like in the Batman Arkham games, heavy attacks can't be parried and must instead be dodged. And there was still one final
parece
collection
negócio bem
errand to run
íntimo
in
ali na
Chapter
luta.
3, and as you
Bem
may have guessed
mesmo.
by now, the cannoli hit the fan on this one. A visit to a farmer named Fichera sees him yell at us in a reversal because his new water pump was stolen by bandits, and the protection he pays Don Teresi handsomely for didn't protect his valuable property. It's finally here that the patient Luca tells Enzo that he's got free reign to put live ammo in his gun and not be afraid to pull the trigger, as these lawless bandits were effectively putting their hands in the Don's pocket by stealing from Fichera.
We can't have that.
This leads to a hunt up the hillside through 2 separate bandit camps before we finally squared off with, and shot many bullets into, the dozen or so wayward thieves that stood between us and the water pump they stole. The familiar third-person cover-based shooting gameplay will be instantly recognizable not just to Mafia series regulars, but also anyone who's played a good third-person action game in the past decade. The Old Country isn't breaking the mold here, but the gameplay systems are comfortable,
ele parece
effective, and fun.
Não tá fazendo
Less
nada super
comfortable,
revolucionário, mas
at
parece
least
tá
for
bem
me,
feito, né?
was the cutscene that followed the death of the last of the bandits, when Cesare cuts off the finger of one of the bandits, takes his gold ring as a bonus payment for his troubles, and tosses the detached digit into the well.
Could be pure gold. He's got no use for it now.
É, né?
Enzo,
Isabella.
With all of your onboarding completed in Chapter 3, the next section of Mafia: The Old Country saw one massive mission play out,
Vai contar os capítulos
involving the
tudo?
Don's daughter Isabella, who Enzo clearly has reciprocated feelings for,
keep an eye on me. You'll be lucky if you can keep up.
and Gennaro, the son of Baron Fontanella, who's arguably an even bigger fish in the Sicilian mafioso sea than Don Teresi is. Gennaro wants to show off his fancy new car, and he also wants to woo Isabella, so he sets up a picnic date in the nearby ruins. It starts with Enzo
mano, sei lá,
having
hein?
to babysit the gathering and ends with a kidnapping, a car chase involving you on a horse, a trail of bodies left in Enzo's wake, a stabbed, double-crossing business partner, a happy Don Teresi, and an even more smitten with Enzo, Isabella. It started quietly, with Gennaro driving Cesare in his car to the ruins, and Isabella insisting on riding there on horseback alongside Enzo. Yes, you'll be able to choose and ride your own horse in Mafia: The Old Country, with each steed even having its own personality and characteristics. Based
Legal.
on what I played, it didn't necessarily seem like your choice of horse would materially affect gameplay, but it was a welcome way to add a bit of life and meaning to the narrative nevertheless.
É, porque se não for um negócio muito
A
aberto, né,
pit
no jogo,
stop
não tem
en route to the
muita...
ruins showed off the
abertura pra
camera
você
you can
explorar
take
muito
pictures
cavalo.
of scenic spots with.
Have you ever used one of these before?
Unfortunately, it was the only opportunity I had to use it in the 3 hours I played, but hopefully you get to use it semi-regularly over the course of the campaign.
Oh,
You're
dá um
also
efeito legal.
introduced to the driving mechanics of the Old Country after you rendezvous with Cesare and Isabella in the form of a low-stakes race around the ruins, perhaps a nod to one of Mafia
Minigamezinho.
1's most infamous missions. But while Cesare and Enzo are messing around with Gennaro's car during his date with Isabella, bandits, I won't spoil their identity here, swooped in with guns blazing and kidnapped them both. They were really only after Gennaro, and having to take Isabella as well proved to be, well, you can imagine it ended up complicating things severely for the kidnappers. I got to wield a shotgun in this segment and found that it packed a satisfying punch.
É, mas tá longe pra usar uma
There
escopeta,
was
hein?
no
Tá
bringing a
funcionando.
knife, let alone stealth chokeouts, to a gunfight here. I brought Enzo in with an itchy trigger finger. After the aforementioned chase, I was able to run down their wagon and gun down plenty of the kidnapping cadre and rescue
Maneiro, a
Isabel,
gunfight
who
em
rewarded
cima do cavalo
Enzo with a
mesmo.
kiss.
Ih.
Don't tell the Don.
Cara, quanto spoiler, mano, pelo amor de Deus.
But while Cesare brought Isabella back home, Enzo still had to get Gennaro back, because returning without either one would leave Enzo equally dead from either father. It's this section that allowed me to really unleash my inner Sam Fisher, as it was set up for stealth rather nicely in an open area, letting me pick my path and remain undetected. If you give me a stealth option in a game, I'm gonna take it 9 times out of 10.
Eu também,
and
até ser
Mafia: The Old
descoberto.
Country was no different.
Mas sempre tem a
The
oportunidade, eu vou
developers later
começar pelo
told me
menos no
that they
stealth.
don't expect most players to make it through the entire area, which was admittedly quite large and stocked with a ton of bad guys, without alerting anyone. I took this as a personal challenge, and while I held out for quite a while, eventually I did get spotted and had to start shooting. But while you are in the Old Country's stealth segments, basic Splinter Cell rules are in effect. You crouch to make less noise, throw coins or picked up objects like bottles to
Vai
distract
jogando
bad
ali,
guys,
é.
and can either knife them quickly or try to strangle them unconscious, which triggers a button-mashing QTE you've got to be quick about, lest they slip out of your grasp. There are even conveniently placed empty containers around that you can hide the bodies in so that they're not discovered. The Old Country doesn't break any new ground here, but
Assim
in my
como no combate,
experience,
né, que a
it
gente já havia
does
falado
familiar
do
stealth
tiro.
gameplay reasonably well. I do appreciate that there are upgradable bead slots on your rosary that affect gameplay, like this one
Fantasma.
that dampens the sound of your footsteps.
Legal.
And I appreciated those dampened footsteps until I reached the last man standing for the kidnappers, Messina, whose real story you'll learn when you play the game yourself.
Por favor, né, que
Enzo
você tá contando
challenged
muita
him to a
coisa.
knife fight, which Messina accepted by dropping his gun and engaging Enzo on his terms. I was having trouble timing my parries just right in the ensuing battle, but I kept enough blood in Enzo's body for him to emerge as the victor in the fight. Side note, I died a couple times during my 3 hours while playing on normal, but there are multiple difficulty levels to choose from if you want to ratchet things up or down. And after returning to the vineyard, Don Teresi, after hearing of Isabella's kidnapping, tells Enzo he wants Messina alive.
You put the rest of those bastards in the ground. Messina, you bring back to me alive.
Whoops. Yeah, about that. But ultimately, I did good, the boss said, and Isabella made her feelings quite clear with the smile on her face directed at Enzo.
Vamos lá,
Chapter
conta mais
5,
spoiler
the
agora
final
do
one I
último
got to
capítulo,
play,
do 5.
let
Do último
me
que ele jogou,
again
né?
flex my stealth muscles by tasking me with infiltrating the home of the man ultimately responsible for calling for the Gennaro, and by collateral damage extension, Isabella kidnapping, and dragging him out of his house and back to my boss. Or, put another way, to kidnap the kidnapper. This mission could truly have been pulled straight from a Splinter Cell game, as I had my
Invadir a
choice of
casa dele,
ways
né?
up the hillside to the large villa at the top. I kept it quiet, stabbing my way through the human obstacles in front of me before eventually getting into the house and to my target. I wouldn't be so lucky on the way out, though, as by the time I walked out with my target in tow, everyone still left standing knew what was going on, and I had to shoot my way out. As to what happened to that man I brought to the Don, well,
Mwah.
you'll find out. I left my extended hands-on session with Mafia: The Old Country with very few concerns. In roughly 3 hours, I played 3 chapters, but how many chapters are there? Whatever the number is,
ainda não sabe o que é.
feel like a story that
Dá
was
mais ou
going
menos
to be
1 hora
wrapped
por
up in a
capítulo.
tidy 6 hours. I don't know how long The Old Country ultimately is, but when factoring in the studio president's comment about wanting everyone to see the end credits roll, as well as the $50 price tag, it's safe to presume that this won't be a 40 or even 30-hour
Tá
game.
maluco?
But for my
Não.
money, that's
Tô
fine.
imaginando que seja
I'm a
uns
dad with a
15,
job.
16.
I'm good with Mafia The Old Country being a game I can get through in a weekend or two. And more importantly, I'm now quite confident I'm going to have a lot of fun playing through this one, however long it lasts. The gameplay mechanics are all solid if familiar, with enjoyable stealth, shooting, knife combat, and driving. And perhaps the most important ingredient in a Mafia game, the story, had me engaged and eager to see
História,
where it was
cinematografia
gonna
tá
go.
boa.
It'll be good
A
to get
interpretação
back
parece
to
tá
a
legal.
Mafia 1 and 2 vibe again. It's been a long time. For more on Mafia The Old Country, don't miss our exclusive gameplay from last week, as well as the official story trailer. And for everything else in the world of video
É isso aí, rapaziada. Cara, eu acho que isso aqui é muito bom, tá? Essa decisão que eles fizeram assim, foi assim, ó, não vamos... Quem sabe se o Mind's Eye não tivesse essa mentalidade, ele não seria um jogo bem melhor. Tipo assim, ó, a gente não vai cobrar menos pelo jogo, tá? Mas a gente não vai fazer muita loucura, não vai ser mundo aberto, a gente não vai querer inventar a roda com questão de gameplay, mas o que a gente for fazer aqui vai ser bom. A gameplay, ela vai estar gostosinha de se jogar, tanto a questão do tiro, né, do feeling da arma, quanto a questão do stealth, até parece também o combate corpo a corpo com a faca, né? Mas a gente vai se superar onde? Pô, é na narrativa, na cinematografia, pegar essa vibe mesmo de mafioso. E vamos fazer aqui, que parece estar muito bem colocado, apesar de não ter, a gente não saber, né? Se foi só uma previewzinha, parece que é uma história que tá bem contada, parece que é uma história que tá bem dirigida. Então ele tá entregando uma experiência legal. E não precisa fazer um jogo de 60 horas, 40 horas. Não, assim, ó, vamos cobrar menos. Vamos entregar uma experiência de 15 horas, assim, mais ou menos 16 horas, que eu tô imaginando, tá? Mas que ela seja boa, que ela seja divertida, sem ficar enjoativo pra galera. Vamos. Pô, isso pra mim acerta demais. Eu acho que quando não tem um jogo com um orçamento desse que a gente tem visto de centenas de milhões de dólares sendo colocados, essa talvez seria uma solução bacana que mais empresas deveriam fazer, principalmente empresas fazendo com IP nova, como é o caso do Mind's Eye, como a gente citou, né? Ou o caso do Clair Obscur também, que também não é maior, né? Mas é um RPG, então um RPG você consegue economizar um pouquinho em questão da gameplay e tal, então você consegue colocar em algumas áreas que você não colocou as outras. Então, mano, tô animado. Falta menos de um mês. Vamos dar uma conferida toda pra poder jogar aqui com vocês também. E vou passar pra vocês a minha review quando a gente tiver zerado. Beleza, meus queridos? Então diz aí nos comentários o que você achou aqui dessa preview do Mafia The Old Country. Eu acho que eles vão acertar aonde deve. Mas deixa aí abaixo se tem mais alguma preocupaçãozinha aqui com o jogo. Claro, curtiu aqui o vídeo. Não esquece de deixar aquele crítico no like. Se inscreve no canal que a gente faz vídeo aqui todos os dias. Eu ficando por aqui. Um grande abraço pra vocês. Até mais. E fui!